Welcome, Hardies. We are here for the Hardies Hotline podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Sarah, the hawk-eyed Hardie, and you know my co-host, the hooked Hardie, Cammie.
Hello, everybody.
We are here to talk about season 9, episode 6, past, present, and future. So we're halfway through the season.
Whoa.
I almost don't believe it.
I know. And we are coming at you this Easter weekend because on Thursday, we dropped our episode that was an interview with the man himself, Mr. Brian Bird. So if you missed that, go back and listen to that. That was our Thursday post.
Such a joy talking with Brian, getting some behind the scenes information and lots of pot stirring.
He's so good at that.
Wouldn't be complete without that.
Oh no.
But let's dive right into last week's episode because we want to prepare for episode 7. So start off the bat. Things look a little different in Hope Valley these days. Getting a little busy, a lot more cars.
When I was watching it, Will comes in and he hears the horns and he looks at it and he says, may not be a one mounty town for long, huh?
Ooh.
That's what he said. It's like, oh man, that's just what we need, another mountie coming to town.
Well, to be fair, Bill still acts like one.
He still acts like one, but he's not one.
He's not. Well, in some ways, because he still pulled rank this episode.
But he's a judge. So I would say any judge is above a mountie constable. So
I suppose so. How crazy. Oh, so what do you think about this town? There's more cars than there are people, it almost seems.
It did seem like that. And we don't know if that's permanent. We don't know if they're just passing through, or we don't know if they're coming to town to be part of the foundry, because Rosemary, if you notice, was not calling anybody by name, and neither was Nathan. You know, Rosemary was sticking her nose in trying to direct traffic.
And that one gentleman that she was talking most specifically to, he seemed quite irritated by her and did not seem to know who she was.
No.
So.
And Nathan kept on saying, sir, and you. And so it did not look like these people were people that we knew or they knew.
Not regular Hope Valley folk.
No. So we don't know. We don't know if this is just people passing through. We don't know if this is just the way it's getting because more and more people are buying automobiles, or we don't know if those kind of people are coming to town.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that wasn't the only issue. There were many issues just with less polite behavior, and
I'll have myself a lovely day too.
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake, people.
Well, at least they're giving lots of ideas for the crossword puzzle. extra words.
Rude, peevish, discourteous.
The more you think about it, Florence really is the perfect person to come up with these puzzles.
Oh, she's perfect for the puzzles, yes.
Speaking of the foundry, they also tried to put up a sign.
A billboard. Oh my gosh. And the mayor knew nothing of it.
Nobody knew anything of it.
And Lee almost got beaten up.
Wow. That was about the most dramatic scene I've seen with Lee for a while.
Yeah.
If ever.
For a while, but thanks to the stout preacher, it broke up before it was even started, Lee said.
Yes.
But I mean, honestly, do those people have any business just walking into a town and saying, oh, we feel like putting up a billboard here, we're going to do it? Do they
Yeah.
really have any right to do that?
I mean, I don't know how land use worked back then
No,
or
me neither,
works
but
in this show, but the town has a community board
yeah,
where Rosemary posts things. So you'd think that business wise, you would have people ask if they could advertise in the newspaper or put some
yeah, because
try or even if they were taking
Rosemary's is a headline board. And then they have that community board inside the mercantile.
right. So you'd think that you'd either try to put something up there with or without permission, or try to go through the newspaper before putting up your own separate thing. Like it just makes sense that you'd put it where people already look for information.
But this is the foundry. So, I mean, apparently this billboard was supposed to only be for foundry jobs. So they must have had a lot that they needed to say.
Apparently, and they want to say it their way, which is without words, apparently.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I thought Lee escalated a little quickly, but at the same time, like he just was asking him a question and the guy shoved him at the, first. So I was like,
and then, I mean, I hope Lee didn't re-throw his back out when he took him and threw him, Wow.
Oh, yeah, that was a little scary. But I will for the positive here. I really enjoyed seeing Nathan acting like a traffic cop. I thought that was hilarious and unique for a show like this.
Yeah, that is something we can truly say we've never seen. We've never seen a Mountie play traffic cop. I mean, can you imagine Jack playing traffic cop? It does not.
I can't. Nathan did it very well.
Yeah, and he did it very well.
While irritated, he did it very well.
Bless his heart. He was trying so hard to keep his cool. And I mean, automobiles are the last thing that Nathan wants to be around right now.
His tone is changing throughout the episode.
It really is. Yeah, I think that being forced to play traffic cop is making him understand just how prevalent automobiles are becoming. And
yeah, so it becomes twofold. There's the fact that this is going to be everywhere and I need to keep with the times. And then maybe a little bit of PTSD from his accident.
Yeah.
Not fully being 100% ready to get back on a horse yet, I don't think.
Literally.
Yeah. I mean, you got to get back up on that horse, but who would have thought it was Newton? We got to hear a little bit about Nathan's background growing up.
Yeah.
Interesting that he didn't learn how to ride a horse until he was 13.
Yeah, maybe that makes me feel a little bit better about Robert.
I know. We always felt like he's a little old to just have his first experience on a horse in a town like this.
It also depends on circumstances, because it sounds like Nathan grew up in a town.
Okay.
So, because, I mean, it sounded like it.
Right.
Because he didn't say anything about farmland, and his
True.
father worked in a bank.
That's true.
All of that. So it doesn't sound like he had much need of a horse. He was probably driving a wagon at 6 years old, but actually riding a horse, it probably took him until 13 because he was not growing up on a farm.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about Nathan's revelation to May that he didn't think it was Newton that was the problem?
Oh, well, number one, it surprised me. I really enjoyed listening to him tell the story without the mustache. I couldn't resist.
You could see his facial expression so much clearer. Right there, you could see his face.
But I did not assume that at all. I assumed that Newton was a big chunk of the problem. I mean, obviously he was going to have a little bit of trouble, but I never dreamed that he would have that kind of trouble. And he also said that at 13, it was his first concussion.
And I was like, ooh, how many are we talking?
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about this last one? And so, you know, so is this just his second concussion?
Right. Which would maybe like be that why that memory is so strong for him. If this is mirroring that accident.
Right. So I don't know. I never would have thought that he was a huge chunk of the problem. And I never would have believed that he didn't start writing until 13.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he's quite the horseman.
He is and you know, we know that
so there is hope for Robert.
There's hope for Robert. But we know that Kevin McGarry himself is a very fine horseman. And we know that that happened very quickly because he lied for Heartland. And this has come out of his own mouth. He lied and said, yes, I can ride a horse for Heartland. And then he learned how to ride a horse on Heartland, therefore making him able to take the job for When Calls the Heart as a horseman.
Well,
yeah. So it just does go to show that you can become very good at something in a short amount of time. And 13 years old up to, you know, I'm assuming that the character of Nathan is probably around 30, maybe 25 to 30. So I'm assuming that's how old the character is, or around there. And so, you know, from 13 to around 30, that's a very significant amount of time. And if he wanted to be a Mountie, then he was practicing a whole lot to get good at it.
Right. Once he got over that fear.
Right.
The first time. And I really like how that references that Newton might only be skittish because he's picking up on those feelings.
Right.
Because animals are so intuitive.
Very.
So I think there was that concern, like, well, how come Newton seems fine when he's with May?
Yeah.
But then doesn't seem fine later.
It
explains it a lot.
Yeah.
He's picking up on that anxiety. But then May went and told Bill what he had confided in her. That surprises me only because of the specific characters involved in that discussion, because May has already confided in Bill information that she wouldn't want him to tell Nathan. Bingo. Not that he would have, I mean, he would have cause. He wouldn't have like legal cause. Like she thinks she's helping out potentially a really drastic situation. But if Bill's concerned for Nathan as a person, he would have cause to share what he learned. He probably wouldn't because of the legal ramifications of that, but it's an odd dynamic to be like,
it is. Yeah.
I'm going to go to the person who knows my secret and tell somebody else's secret.
The only thing that makes me okay with May telling Bill is that she knows that Bill and Nathan are very close. So Bill is not a gossip. He's not going to go spreading it around. However, it did ground Nathan, so to speak. Yeah. So, and just like you said, it seems very odd that someone who is so desperate to remain secretive, so desperate to remain inconspicuous, would just go and tell something like that. You know, just obviously he was bearing his soul to her.
And I think the one thing that where I would have been like not as concerned about her telling Bill is when Bill said, should I be worried? And she said yes. Like in that moment, in that split second, if she had just said, I don't know,
that would have, yeah,
it would have been totally different. And it would have put it onto Bill to maybe investigate further instead of saying something to him.
Mm-hmm. But she jumped
I also feel like Bill probably shouldn't have just ran right to Nathan and told him that May told him.
Probably not.
That doesn't seem like the most discreet way to approach the situation.
No.
Oops.
Oopsie.
But more on Bill and May another time.
Next episode. So
Next episode, a lot. Looks
a
like.
lot.
I think that's going to be the main focus. Going back just a little bit, we had another neat idea from Molly and Flo.
Minding your manners with Molly.
Well, yes, that's what they landed on. They tried a few other solutions, got shot down pretty hard. Do you think Lucas was just in a mood when they asked him?
I think he was, because Lucas is not rude like that.
No, and especially to townsfolk who are like established people who he has connections with. Yes.
He's very
formal.
Yeah, he's very formal. He's very appropriate with ladies and the like. And so I think just everything, because 2 minutes later, he's sitting with Elizabeth and saying, my life is upside down right now. So yeah. I do think that he was just in a mood. However,
absolutely not.
I mean, thankfully he amended it, but with Flomo, too late.
Luckily, they seemed to just move on and, okay, what's our next plan?
After they did not. I know the first person who should sign up to take our classes.
They may not let this one go. This may come up later. Good chance. Speaking of Lucas, we had a lot of information from Lucas this episode as well.
Okay, so first thing I noticed is there is another mention of his mother. I think that this is very, very promising. And I could be completely off base here, but I think this is going to mean return of Terrell Rothery in season 10.
I know they've said they want to. They tried to get it into season 9. I know John Tinker said that they tried to, and just like storyline wise, they didn't have enough space in the season to write in what they wanted to write in, and that they were very hopeful. I believe he said to have both of Lucas's parents in season 10, which, you know, would set up nice for a formal gathering of some kind.
What could that formal gathering be? We don't know. But
no clue.
So who would play Lucas's father? Who would play Mr. Bouchard?
Right?
Hearties, I want to know what you think, because I honestly don't have any ideas off the top of my head. I mean, put a mustache on Gregory Harrison and we got it. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, he works very well with Terrell. But
you know that, yeah.
He's an actor we haven't had who would be quite good. There were a few people that came to mind very briefly, and then I was like, nope, they've already been close up.
Like who?
Well, like Bruce Boxleitner.
Oh yeah, problem.
Love him. And then a few other lesser known character actors who usually play the dads on the Hallmark movies, but nobody is jumping out at like, oh, that he would look a lot like him, or
no one.
And we don't know a lot about his character, what his character is like specifically. So it's kind of hard to try to picture someone.
Yeah, they are keeping Mama very much alive here.
Which is fabulous. I mean, It's not like she's just a character who visited once. Like, she had a big part of the plot in terms of Elizabeth's book and everything. So it makes more sense to have more connection with her ongoing versus like after Jack's mom had visited, we didn't really hear a lot about her, but she didn't have kind of an intricate part of the plot.
Right.
And so I think this makes sense to have worked it this way. And it's also very respectful of where we are in the series. Elizabeth is in her second love story, and we're trying to make it more prominent in terms of, all the people that are like, let her be happy now. She had all this heartbreak, let her settle down and be happy with this man. And so having more interaction with this man's family, giving, potential for a grandparent for little Jack to be present at times, more so, that's a great way to take the writing, I think. My question with this was, though, I realize they're still just dating, but because his mother had this relationship separate with Elizabeth, separate from being the daughter-in-law, do you find it odd at all that she's sending all of these informations and communications through Lucas?
No, I don't, because Hope Valley is still a small town. And obviously, she now knows that the two of them are a couple. She can't not know.
I can't not know.
Yeah. And so I think that by sending it to Lucas, she gives more opportunity for them to meet up together and for them to interact. And, this is going to sound silly, but to give them fodder for conversation. I mean,
because they need it.
No, that's not what I meant, but it does, it gives them something to talk about, and it gives them interaction, and it gives him an excuse to go over to her home and see her, that kind of thing. Like, oh, my mother dropped this off for you. She knows what she's doing.
It's such a matchmaker mother thing to do.
It is. But if you remove all romantic feelings from it, if you remove all of that, he's her son. And why send a letter to Elizabeth? That might, I don't know, that might just be a little odd. So
I think it depends on the circumstance. The other episode, when she sent the letter kind of congratulating her on the book being released, like, that would have made sense as her editor.
Yeah, that would have, but we're in an interesting and completely different situation, because he is possibly going to be the mother-in-law. So, and it's
agreed.
Looking more probable. Yeah, it looks more probable as time goes on. So I didn't even think anything of it. I just thought, oh, I'm sending a whole package to Lucas while you're at it.
Exactly. And it could have been included in a larger, package. That's definitely a big point that I hadn't thought of.
Yeah, it saves on postage.
Okay, well, what about the real serious conversation between Lucas and Elizabeth? He actually told her where he got the black eye. Well, where he thinks he got the black eye.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
We all know. We don't know specifically. We know it's something to do with that.
Yeah. So who gave him the black eye again? What who?
Oh, it was little Jack, wasn't it? Just like I predicted it would be.
Gosh. I won this one. But anyway, we're going back to being serious. I was so proud of him. I was so proud of him. Yes, I was proud of him for telling her where he got the black eye. And he didn't even do it with a lot of pomp and ceremony. He just said it. He just said, I have no doubt that I got this black eye from one of their men, but it didn't have anything to do with selling the saloon. And she said, but they got you pretty good. That's debatable. He brought it up.
She brought it up, but which actually is better. I'm really glad that she brought it up and he just answered.
Yeah,
because that just shows
he answered.
He wasn't ready to talk about it before, but now he is. He's not keeping secrets. He just needed time to process and figure it out and feel comfortable talking about it.
And then he kind of made it a little light so that it didn't get too serious.
And she took it really well.
He did. She took it really well. I was kind of surprised, but after being married to a Mountie. I don't
and she
think
didn't
that a
take
Shiner is that big of a deal.
she didn't take it so well. Like she was still like, yeah, why would you do that? You know, like
Right.
still put a little bit of that pressure on him, like, not really smart.
But the other thing was that I found so interesting is Lucas says, I am not selling the saloon. And if I was, I would discuss it with you. And I thought, whoa, first we have if we should marry. And then we have if I were going to sell my business, I would discuss it with you first. Like that's a married people thing. So
It's a serious people thing. I mean,
okay,
granted,
fine.
it wouldn't
It's a serious couple thing.
granted, it would be fully his decision because they're
Yeah.
not married. But I would expect at this point, when you're making references to marriage and when there's a child involved and all of those things, I would fully expect someone to at least mention it ahead of time to someone, even if it wasn't.
He didn't say mention. He said discuss.
No, I know. But even if it wasn't a discussion, I would definitely expect that there would not be a, oh, surprise, I sold the business.
Because the motorcycle purchase, he did not discuss with her. He told her and kissed her on the cheek and walked away.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that is smaller.
It's much
It's a
smaller.
smaller purchase and not quite as life altering in terms of like, what are you even doing for a living now?
Right.
Type of thing. And do you have anything to keep you here in this town so that we can remain together?
Right.
You know, big things like that. But I mean, I think there's, and maybe I don't want to speak for all people, but I think, you know, a lot of relationships, there's a moment when somebody does something, even if it's not as big of a purchase as that, but like does something that they're used to making that decision on their own. And then they kind of realize, oh, I probably should have ran that. I think we're at the point now where I should have mentioned that first. And I think that happens in a lot of relationships. I know when my husband and I were dating, he bought a boat. Yeah, I mean, we weren't engaged yet, but it was surprising to say the least. But, oh, like I didn't even know that was something you wanted.
Huh. Wow. Okay.
And then it was, you know, it was just one of those things you got to kind of be like, okay, I think we're kind of getting to the point where that's something we just mentioned to each other before doing it.
Oh, goodness. So I will say one thing about Lucas is it's nice to see that a man so focused on progress. It's really nice to see the noise even bothering him. That I did not expect. I did not expect. He's a city guy. He is a city guy, but he has become.
Yeah, he's stayed here longer than anywhere else he's ever been.
And he has become a Hope Valley man. And, you know, and that interaction was so brief, but it was so cute that when he steps down, hello, kisses her hand. Do you remember when the only noise people complained about was the saloon? You know, it was an adorable interaction. It was one of those small gestures that Elizabeth has talked to him about, which he did beautifully. And then it kind of showed where he has come.
And it was a great gesture to Hardee's to like reference season 6. Love the callbacks. One of those things we talked with Brian
that
about.
Was a
it was like
callback, but it was there.
Oh yeah, I remember when people were complaining about the noise of the saloon.
Quite provocative.
Oh yes.
That's still the best line in season 6.
It's been a little while since I watched season 6, but probably, yeah.
Just go with it.
I don't have like a counter suggestion.
There you go.
I love that scene. So another man about town in Hope Valley, Mr. Leland Coulter.
Who is also very progress driven.
Right? And yet he's not sure about the progress either.
He's not sure about the progress he's seeing.
Right.
But I do have to say that moment when he said, I don't know, put up stop signs. Let's get a traffic light. I don't care. No, that's not true. I do care. And then
Exactly.
Bill, of course, I'm like, well, you do own the newspaper. I'm like, oh, that's just.
If I didn't know Bill better, if this was season 1 of a show, and I'm like, who is this guy, right? I would think he's being a little two-faced.
You think?
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it feels like, I mean, I don't think it's intentional, but I don't know if he's changing his mind about what he wants or what he thinks he needs to do all the time, or if he's just not going about it the right way. But he seems to like tell people one thing and then be like, oh, okay, no, we shouldn't do that. Let's do this.
Maybe he was just trying to get Lee out of his office.
That actually makes the most sense, knowing Bill.
Yeah.
For someone who wants the big fancy office, he really doesn't ever want people in there with him.
Yeah. No, knowing Bill the way we do, I think that he was getting grumpy about Lee interrupting him. So get rid of Lee. Boom.
Lee's solution, which was sort of Bill's idea, is let's write an editorial about our dear mayor.
Do you think he was correct?
Well, it's hard to know without being able to read the whole editorial.
Right.
It's really hard to say how much I would side with him if I was living there, based on what I know about the town. I think I tend to side more with the comments that Rosemary made about, regardless of him being the mayor, nothing would solely rest on his shoulders. None of the responsibility would be one person. And that, especially in a town like this, when everybody always comes together to support each other and to make decisions and to help the town. And granted, I think that has many times been by a town leader, but not always, because we've had Gowan as the mayor when he was not so great.
When he was not so great, when we were all dreading him being the mayor.
Not so great Gowan. And so at that time, it was other members of the community that would step up and kind of lead change. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you're in a transitional period with a new person in leadership, it makes sense that there would be people around to support him in that role. And I don't think that necessarily means that he is or isn't in the right role. I mean, I think any brand new leader should have a little bit of support for a short period of time.
Which Bill showed him at the end. Yeah. But we're talking about Lee right now.
Teaching him the princess wave.
And the smile and nod.
Just smile and nod. Wave. Yeah.
But Joseph said it really, really well when he said he's on a mission to save Hope Valley. And I really, truly feel that is what Lee is trying to do. I don't think that he's trying to be malicious. I don't think that, he said it himself. I like Michael. And even though Rosemary said, you haven't acted like it lately, it is true that, when Nathan said to Michael, you got to do something about this traffic problem, working on it, a billboard was going up. Oh, that shouldn't be happening. So it is true that the new mayor is falling a little short. And so
here's the question I have. In the past, the mayor has always been supported by the town council.
Mm-hmm. So where's the town council?
If you've got a brand new mayor and you have a system in place for all these things to get done, that would be the prime time for some of these other people to be doing something or advising him, or, I don't think he would just automatically know all the things he's supposed to do.
That's very true.
And I never heard him say things like, I don't know what to do, or, every time people gave him information, he seemed to accept it very well. He seemed to like be logging it, and like he seems like a person that just has this like constantly
File
running
cabinets,
right? Like he's just like filing that away, and that's never gonna go anywhere. Like he's gonna remember that and he's gonna follow up. I feel like he is. I feel like he's just having a ton of stuff thrown at him right now. And on top of that, I want to point out that here Lee used to have such a close relationship with him when he worked at the sawmill, and Hickam really looked up to Lee. Yeah. And to have Lee be the one that wrote this about him. And I'm sorry, what I don't side with is especially that headline. The headline's all I know. You know, I don't know what was worded in the article, but the headline, I assume referencing the Emperor Has No Clothes type of story, with the mayor has no clothes, I believe was the title of the editorial.
I think. I
mean, that's just insulting. It's not saying I disagree with how he's running the town. It's calling him out that he doesn't have a clue.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I think the biggest thing for Lee right now is he's still wounded over losing. And I've had this syndrome before. It actually happened to me in high school. I got moved aside in the high school production of Romeo and Juliet. I was all set. Everyone in the class said that I should be Juliet, and I was all set to be Juliet. And then I got cast as the assistant director. I wasn't even going to be on stage.
Huh.
And the girl who played Juliet, she did fine, but I was like,
ouch. Yeah.
It was a big ouch. Yes. And here I am coaching her on how to be a better Juliet when I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have just played it. So I can understand where Lee is coming from. Now, did he go about it the right way? No, but I can see where his feelings are.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. I think Rosemary's doing a great job of being supportive and yet letting him do what he needs to do to process this.
Yes, but she's also keeping him pulled back a little bit. You know, just no, we've run enough issues.
We've run enough. Yep.
Don't need any more. We don't need to keep pushing this.
We need to let the dust settle. I liked that. I liked that line. Like sometimes you need to say your piece and then just wait.
And he did say his piece, and it's got folks talking, just like Minnie said, it's got folks talking.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did think that Mike needed a bit of a wake-up call. This was just the wrong way to do it. This was,
and again, I think writing an editorial wasn't a bad idea, but it
was the tone.
Here's that the tone was quite insulting.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And again, I haven't seen Lee trying to help him.
No.
And I think he would accept help, and not in a like desperate, like I don't see him as being desperate, but I do see him as being floundering.
Yeah.
And I think he would accept graciously any support anybody offered, as he's doing with Bill. And I also want to say he seems to be holding himself with a lot of composure with that type of scandal.
Oh, Hickam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, season 1, 2, 3, 4 Hickam would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. He's grown a lot. He's learned a lot. He's gained a lot of confidence and a lot of skill, you know, especially in the oil business. I mean, we'll talk about that later, but I loved the comment that even Gowan acknowledged that at one point in the discussions, like he knows so much about the oil business.
Yeah. He really is quite the businessman. He has been the foreman in 2 businesses now
that were major businesses,
major town businesses. So this is, I mean, he just is not, he's used to being the foreman, not the chief executive officer. So he has to learn how to give the orders.
Yes, but he also needs people to give the orders to that will do them.
He
and
needs
not
support.
Yeah, he needs an active support and people that will not just be there, but will support him. Not
So while we're on Mike, Sarah, can we move to Mike and Faith sitting in a tree? KISSING.
I'd be fine if we moved to that, like actually moved into that.
And would you be fine if that actually happened?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I would be so fine if that happened. I've been a firm supporter of Mike Hickam all the way.
Yeah, as have I. I just have a really, really hard time picturing Mike Hickam. As much as I wanted romance for him, I am seriously having a very hard time picturing him kissing somebody, like actually having the courage to kiss somebody.
The character we're not talking about.
No, not Ben. The character
is very timid at times and not sure how to talk to specifically women. Can be a little challenging. So yeah, it could be interesting to see. And we definitely saw a lot of that hesitancy, lack of confidence.
Foot in mouth.
Oh, okay. So on both sides, they tried to avoid very much calling it a date. But I mean, it was a date, right?
It was a date.
It was a date. It's totally a date.
But, I'm not being nice. That's not what I meant to say. You're clinical and dispassionate.
Also not right.
Also not what I meant to say. And after all that, she still said yes, which proves that
she's making it. Yeah, but then she makes it very clear too, like, we're just having dinner, we're just friends having dinner.
But I think it proves what a compassionate person Faith is. I mean, she totally took pity on the poor man.
You'd have to. Oh,
you'd have to. Like, oh, why not? I've been working so much. Yes, I would love to get some food.
Yeah. I mean, I'm torn because I feel like it would set up really nicely if they were just friends for a little while and she was able to kind of get over everything with Carson separately. And then they moved into more of a romantic relationship. But at the same time, I feel like that would very much mirror kind of how he became really good friends with Fiona and everybody thought that might turn into something. And it appears they're moving in a different direction. So I wouldn't want to just have him continually making friends with women and it never going anywhere. Like that would just be sad.
Hickam friend zoned. That'd be terrible.
That would be really terrible. Anyway, I could see them very much being a cute pair. And I think it honestly might work really well to have her kind of be the more confident one of the two, but he's confident in the specific things that he does. Like in his job at the oil company, he got very confident in that because he learned it and knew it and was very good. And I feel like he can be that way with Mayor, given a little more opportunity and trust from people, and maybe having a supportive partner would build that.
He's a lot like Nathan in that regard. I mean, when Nathan was being a Mountie, especially when we saw him being a Mountie in Brookfield on When Hope Calls, he was the boss. I mean, he was confident. He was almost cocky, not arrogantly so, but I mean, he was strutting around knowing what he was supposed to do. And then he comes back to Hope Valley and he's standing in front of Elizabeth and it's poor guy didn't know what to say. So, he was
everybody has moments when they're out of their element.
Right. And so he had the Clark Kent kind of persona with Hope Valley. But anytime he's being a Mountie, he knows his stuff. He knows what he's doing. I mean, except right now because he's experiencing some PTSD. But I feel like that's a lot of what Mike is like. He is the man who knows his stuff, But when you put him in something where he doesn't know his stuff, I mean, when he walks back into the office, he says, "We never said where, did we?" And she says, "Or when." "Well, one step at a time." And he walks back out. I was like, "Mike, wait."
Which is definitely what clues me in to the fact that it's a date. Because if he's just asking a friend to come and give him some advice, there's no reason for him to act that way and to blow it off and be like, I did one step. Like it's not a step to just ask a friend for advice. That's actually quite normal. So I actually, piggybacking on something you just said a minute ago, I almost feel like what I would like to see happen. So they showed Hickam's next door office this time.
It's awful.
Great. So great job, Mike, on finding an available space. I know that can be hard. Sometimes real estate market is not what you want it to be. And it's a small town. And I know it's hard to find space. I think that he needs the actual mayor's office. I think that Bill needs to vacate.
Yeah.
And I think that I honestly think like it'd be nice of Bill to offer, since he should have already.
Yeah.
However, I almost feel like because the confidence thing is the issue, I think Hickam needs to be like, "Bill, it's my office.
Yeah.
You're welcome to move in next door."
Where only one person will fit.
It's bizarre because there's like a door and a window on each side, so it's got to be wide.
Maybe it's wide, but not very deep.
Very deep. But there's room enough for his picture of his 5 sisters. Ooh, I'll start with M. I love it.
It was very hard to get into the bathroom, apparently.
Well, Mary, Megan, Millicent, Maud, Maisie, and him probably, it took a lot of time.
Which, I mean, you could see it on Bill's face. He's like, that explains it. Okay, come on. I think that was the moment where Bill said, "Okay, I see what's going on here. Obviously, I need to step in and give you some help. Come on, guy." So yeah, I think that's where Bill had a realization of the situation.
Yeah. I also wanted to point out that was another great callback. I loved that Bill brought up how he took over for mayor from Abigail.
And it was hard.
How hard that would be to take over from somebody that people trusted and have you be the new person in charge, and just really not only validate what the townspeople are feeling, which kind of, I would think, help make Mike feel better about the editorial, but also to really validate the feelings that Mike's feeling. And that's okay to be not at the top of your game right now.
Right. Yeah.
New situation.
And
but I also don't know if I am with him 100% on his plan of attack. It's all about perception, and we'll talk about strategy later.
We need to get things moving in this town. And so let's talk strategy, please.
Yeah,
but
waving isn't going to cut it. But
I think Bill meant right there at that
moment. Yeah.
So,
but I think that's a great example too of Hickam was like, "Oh, you're going to help me. Let's talk. Like, I've got it. I've got all these ideas. Like, somebody talk to me, please."
Breathe.
Yes, but how great is, like, I think that shows that he is prepared and he is trying, but he isn't getting a lot of support.
Very true.
Somebody's showing him an ounce of interest in his ideas, and he wants to talk about them. He wants to get going, which I think gives me that confidence that he can get there. Yeah.
I won't say I'm 100% confident yet that that's going to happen, but if he got the help he needed, yes, I think he would make a great mayor. It's going to be difficult it's kind of like imagining Gowan as a good person while watching season 2. You know, trying to imagine Michael Hickam as this big fearless leader. And right now I'm not picturing it. So
right. Well, maybe your viewing lens is just covered in ice cream.
Because what a shot.
I think they must have had the most fun filming this episode. Several people, not just Allie and Robert, but all the people that got to walk into that scene.
I feel so bad for the wardrobe department. But I also know that thanks to tricks of the trade that they probably
it's not real ice cream.
It's not real ice cream, and it probably came off very easily. I hope. Maybe those were, mess up costumes. They meant to get them dirty,
Right, exactly. Oh my gosh.
But okay. So I know that puss is slang, but Nathan reacted like she said a cuss word.
Well, it's probably pretty equivalent to some just things that you didn't hear children say wasn't appropriate.
Right. Yeah. His eyebrows immediately go up and his eyes go to Elizabeth.
Yeah. And it totally sounds like something her grandpa would have said.
Yes, it does. Okay, my favorite callback of the entire episode. It's yours too. You know what I say about children.
I love that she didn't even say it this time. Lee's reminding her, remember what you say about children? Or she says, remember what I say.
Do you know what I say?
He's like, yeah, you say they're sticky.
Children are so sticky. I still remember at my baby shower when I was pregnant with Jack, that was one of the things that was written on one of the chalkboards. Children are so sticky. The other one was, do you know what's in those diapers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Sarah got in touch with one of my friends down here, and the two of them planned my When Calls the Heart baby shower when I was pregnant with my Jack. So
it was pretty amazing. We had a lot of great references.
We did. You guys had a lot of great references. So that was my favorite callback by far.
Also, I want to point out both of them got last named in that incident.
I was so shocked that Elizabeth didn't do it to her. I mean,
I loved that Rosemary did it to her.
Oh, I did too. But
I thought that was fabulous.
But when she says, Robert Wolf, come out here, please. And then she's like, where are you, Allie? I'm like, she didn't Allie grant her?
I know. That's okay, because I think getting called out by your teacher is one thing. Getting called out by some other random adult from town who doesn't have an authority, who isn't like an authority over you regularly, that can be more intimidating. So I think Rosemary saying that held more weight, honestly.
Okay.
But also my other favorite thing about that scene is how calm Ned was with his store being ruined.
Awash.
Florence was freaking out. But yes, I loved how calm Ned was with that whole thing. Just, it'll wash.
He has such a good head on his shoulders.
He really does.
He's
and
so
it's
good
such
for the town.
It's such a nice contrast to Florence, really. Just seeing them like play off each other. Adorable.
It really is.
And the seltzer bottle was awesome. That was just like, I was just showing her how the seltzer bottle works.
And okay, I didn't call it out loud, but I called it. Allie was jealous of Angela's bicycle ride, which I don't think she had any cause to be, but she was jealous of the bicycle ride that Angela got.
I mean, I don't think it was a romantic bicycle ride by any means, if that's what you mean, but it does make perfect sense that if you have feelings for this boy and he's doing something like that with another girl, that you would.
And when you're 12 or 13,
when you're that age, you would have some feelings about that. That's totally normal.
But I mean, Angela is a blind girl who has been quite sheltered her whole life. She'd never been on a bicycle before.
It was a great gesture.
It was a huge gesture.
But I will also say that not that any of these moments set up as romantic, but because Allie was gone for several episodes, I did see several scenes where Angela and Robert were hanging out, walking around together, doing things together, having ice cream together. And so it is obvious that their relationship has deepened.
They're building a relationship in her absence. Yeah.
And probably it's stronger than it would have been had Allie been there the whole time, not in a necessarily romantic way, or not. I mean, maybe they would end up together. Who knows? But I can see where that dynamic would feel awkward, especially at that age, because there aren't a lot of children in the town. There aren't a lot of other people their age. I actually thought that was brilliant to kind of address that in a certain way.
Yeah, tell where everybody is.
The way Allie was explaining it to Elizabeth, so-and-so's acting like a child still, so-and-so's doing this person's graduating, this person's already working. And, you know, there's nobody where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it's Angela and Robert are like the only people kind of in my bracket, sort of. And now Robert's working, and it's like I don't really have a circle anymore.
Yeah.
And that would be hard. That would be very hard to come to terms with. So that was really just a nice conversation. And I liked how Elizabeth addressed, you know, with her just how to be herself, stop trying to fit in with, you know, other people's circles and still just be yourself and find where you're comfortable.
And stop trying so hard to be boyfriend, girlfriend, and to put such a focus on that. Just don't. I'm having to start doing that with my 11-year-old. But you know, I'm having to say, you're 11. Okay? It doesn't matter who likes who right now. That's not something you even have to put in your head. Just be friends. So
yeah, I'm there with you too.
Yep. We're at that same part.
Yay. Okay. Well, lastly, big developments going on with oil company.
And very big moves by Mr. Henry Gowan. I mean, I don't know how he got a hold of that ruling, but he's a man with a lot of connections.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's something that you wouldn't, I mean, it would have been written in a court document. I don't know that it would have been something that wasn't accessible.
Well, that's true.
In like public records in some way. It's interesting that it wouldn't have been like buried by some people that didn't want people to find it.
Yeah, well, and also for him to pick up on, it says that the Northwest Pacific Mining Company can't reopen the mine, but Jerome and his associates can. And I went, whoa, wow.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And again, I didn't go back and watch this looking for it, but I feel like we knew that. I feel like that's the way it was announced at the trial I think it was worded that way in the episode, was the Pacific Northwest Mining Company cannot ever reopen this mine. I do feel like somebody at some point made a comment, I could again be wrong, that was something like, oh, maybe somebody else would open it someday. But I don't know about this Smith guy. What I'm loving about—
Better than Wyman. And Elizabeth agrees with me.
what I'm loving about how they've done this is they brought Smith and Wyman in at the beginning of the season and set up reasons why we don't like them both. And then they've both been gone. And every development has been about them, but not with them. And so it's hard to kind of evolve our thinking of these two characters without.
Yeah, because they're not there.
And yet I feel like we've had this big evolving perspective of what's going on without seeing either one of them. just through all these references, which I find very interesting in like kind of a storytelling way.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to tell a story, to have all of this stuff happening in their absence.
Gowan lies to Smith and tells him the well went dry.
Yeah.
Or that
gauge his reaction.
To gauge his reaction. They don't tell us what that reaction was.
No.
I certainly enjoyed Lucas's reaction to the fact that he lied.
Why would you tell him that?
But I also love that once Gowan laid it all out for Lucas, he was like, whoa, we need to go to Bill. And they all, in like a united front, had this conversation.
Except Lucas, they were arguing at first.
They were arguing, but you had Lucas and Fiona and Gowan agreeing that this was not okay.
That this was a bad thing for the town.
This is a bad thing for the town. We don't support it. What can we do?
Yeah.
And so that was really good because that was before the really productive conversation between Gowan and Fiona. So, which just, added to that. And so I really loved how they communicated. Obviously, that was a beautiful scene. I loved, Martin is just amazing.
Oh, God. And when he said he wanted to start over with Fiona, oh, man.
And when he said that is right when he took off his hat.
Mm-hmm.
It was so gentlemanly.
Yes.
And genuine.
Yes.
Like acknowledging that he needs to start over. And is she amenable? I love that he says that word a lot. He says if you'd be amenable to that all the time. And I love it. It just is the perfect word for his voice. Like just,
yeah. Oh. My husband said, is there any chance of those two getting together? I went, no, they're business partners.
No, I don't see that. But no, I could see them becoming
either.
I could see a very like uncle niece type relationship.
Oh yeah.
And
just, it's funny that the fact that he's being kind to her, immediately somebody jumps to romantic attachment. Like, no, this is what being kind and apologetic looks like.
And then she even references that he sounds like her dad.
Oh yes.
Well,
you're starting to sound like my father.
He must be a charming gentleman.
I loved that. That was quick. That was
really quick. It was great. What do you think is in the letter that he gave to Fiona to give to Smith? What do you think their plan is?
I can't even begin to guess. I would imagine that somewhere it's tearing up the banknote or giving his money back, something to do with that. I would guess that is going to be somewhere in the letter. But to be completely honest with you, I haven't a clue. I have no earthly idea.
The only way I can see, no, I don't know what the letter could be. I feel like they could be trying to lie about something. I don't really feel like that they would at this point, but I can't remember the exact wording that Lucas said when Gowan got in the car about let's hope he goes for it, or let's hope something.
It sounds like, yeah.
It had that air of like there was something like tricky going on, but it also could be the other thing that crossed my mind is maybe they found a loophole that Fiona wasn't legally a partner because of the way the shares had been given to her.
Maybe. And
so she wasn't entitled to take his banknote on their behalf.
Yeah.
And so that's the only other thing I can think. However, I still feel like, just from inklings and things that have been leaked over time, that the mine issue is still gonna be a potential for part of this, for at least more of the season. And so I don't think it might end up fine. It probably will end up fine, but I don't think it's gonna be resolved in the next episode or so.
No, absolutely not.
Any other predictions? Next week's previews are pretty heavy on the Mei-Su story.
Very. And so I found this really interesting. We see Jeffrey show up. That's my wife. I want her arrested. And then we see him in jail. So
first of all, there's that's a little interesting. Second of all, there's got to be more to that, because nobody just says, that's my wife, arrest her.
Oh, yeah.
So why are we arresting her? Give us some more information. It could be just a ploy with abandonment. Was that a thing back then?
Yeah.
You could be arrested,
especially when the woman did it.
Right.
Yeah, especially when
I don't think they would have done it the other way. But yeah, so I don't know if that's it, but I'm clinging to a shard of chance that I still win this bet. There's still a
marriage license
that could have been forged. How many things have been forged in this show over the years for trials? And
they found a marriage license.
Might not be valid. He could have forged it, or their marriage could have already been dissolved for some reason. Could have, I don't know if annulments happened back then or whatever, but it really seems like there's something else going on. She clearly has a reason that she gave Bill. We don't know what that is, but she clearly gave him a reason that she thinks is valid. So we will see. Again, Hardys, continue to follow the saga of Team Cami versus Team Sarah.
Oh my.
Is May married or not? And we will see you back here next week to review episode 7. Bye, everybody.